Hello, people. Yes, I'm still alive. It has been some time now since I made a video. The simple reason being, I've traveled a lot. I've traveled more actually in the last fortnight than I have in the last 3 years combined in terms of distance covered. I've been to Berlin, and I've been to the West Midlands region to visit my brother and his family, Shropshire to be precise. And from the northeast, that's quite a road journey. So yeah, I've been travelling a lot. I also visited Hartlepool with my father about 3 weeks ago. Well, I guess it would be about a month ago now. To the Royal Naval Museum there. Well worth visiting if you're ever in the town of Hartlepool. Um, I quite like Hartlepool. I think it's actually quite, sometimes it's one of those places that's a butt of jokes because they famously hanged the monkey. At least this is how the story goes during the French Revolutionary Wars. Mistaking it to be a French spy, and even locals kind of use that joke in their town emblem, I believe. But it's actually quite an attractive town in parts of it. I like the harbour front, and there's a historic ship there called the HMS Trincomalee. It didn't see military service directly. It was built just after the Napoleonic Wars, 1817, but it is an authentic early 19th century sailing vessel, military sailing vessel. So if you're ever in Hartlepool, do check that out. I thought what would be a good subject here, partly in light of my recent travels, is to look at public transport in the UK. Now, I'm only going to be scratching the surface here because there really is a lot of components. And I think the best way to do this is to divide it into each mode of transport, really, that I've experienced. I probably haven't been on absolutely everything, but I've been on a fair number of different formats, let's say. So I think that's the best way to do it. Let me just say from the outset, I do believe this country could greatly improve in that area. I do think our public transport, although it's quite extensive actually, it's quite widespread across the island. In Northern Ireland, it's a little bit different because of some different companies, but across Great Britain, it's actually quite extensive. And we British love to complain. We should remember that that's a caveat I'll make here. Although I will also be complaining in this video and I'll also be making critiques, we should remember there are parts of the world, whether from they just don't have the money for it or from infrastructure problems due to war or natural disasters. Um, they have barely any public transport to speak of that's or even a very very limited public system. We don't have that. We have a flawed system, but at least it's not non-existent, and we should bear that in mind. So without further ado, I'll get into this because I don't think you could say it's all bad. I wouldn't say it's entirely bad, but I do think there's areas that can improve. And I particularly want to know in the comments. Anyone's welcome to comment, but anyone in the UK, what's your area like? What's it served by? So I live in North East England, specifically the Tyne and Wear metropolitan county. Now, we have, I'll start with trains. We have the Tyne and Wear Metro. It's basically a rapid transit system. It's quite a big system. It has over, I believe at the moment, over 60 stations, and that's scheduled to develop to the town of Washington. Washington, this is the original Washington, has a population of about 60,000. And actually, along with Corby in Northamptonshire, it's the largest town in the UK to not have a train station of any kind. So that's long been a grievance there. So hopefully connecting the metro to that town would be a good move. Sunderland, we've just got a brand new central terminus opened, and for once it actually looks like a train station. We had a very ugly underground thing for a long time. It really didn't look like a train station to a city centre. It looked like just another subway station. That was Sunderland's train station for a long time. So we finally got a big, brand new facade, new train station. Our cinema closed last year, which was a downer for me. But we've a nice new train station, so credit where credit's due. It looks good. I don't know what the facilities are like. I haven't been in there yet, but it looks good. It looks like a proper train station. So, credit where credit is due. That looks good. And hopefully it will give Sunderland a bit more oomph in that sense. Um, so this Tyne and Wear Metro, it's been open since the 80s. I think it extended into Sunderland city centre around the time I moved here, a little bit afterwards, about 2002, if I've got that correct. I think it was in time for the Golden Jubilee because the late Queen visited and there was a carriage sort of marked for her visit. Um, it's a good system when it works, in the sense that it goes all over the metropolitan county. It goes into Newcastle city centre, Gateshead town centre, all the main towns around here it goes into, except, like I say, for Washington. Sunderland alone, we have 9 stations connected to the metro. So that's a good system because if you want to get, for example, from Sunderland to Newcastle Airport, when I travel, I go to Newcastle Airport. There's a direct station outside the airport. It's about 1 hour. There's a lot of stops, I believe, 20 stops or so. But that brings you directly to the airport. So no messing around with taxis or having to rely on buses. When I travelled to Berlin recently, there was snow, and I was dreading that there'd be cancellations and I'd have to get bus replacements. So I left very early. In the event, it was okay. Now, the rolling stock is old. This is the downside. The rolling stock is quite old, and there are quite a lot of cancellations or delayed trains. Now, the Berlin U-Bahn, it was very, very frequent. When I was there was one coming literally every 3 to 5 minutes, if not less. Like literally, the little info said next southbound station or northbound service, excuse me, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The Tyne and Wear Metro, it's more like 15 minutes. And that is if it's on time. More often than not, it is late. I don't want to exaggerate, it's not all the time, but that is frustrating because, like all these transit systems, they're very, very quick to fine people if you've got the wrong ticket, and that's, fair enough. But um, I remember I did have an incident a few years ago where my train was completely late and it made me late for an interview, so I complained. And the person on the other end said, "Well, you did get your train, didn't you?" And I thought, what sort of public service is that? I'm a customer telling you that my train was late and it inconvenienced my plans, and you're telling me, oh, well, I got my train anyway. So I don't think the Tyne and Wear Metro has always been great with with PR, with treating their customers well. That's maybe improved, but I don't think they've always been good in that sense. But then again, I look a lot around the country, and not every conurbation, not every built-up area has a metro system like this. By the way, if this video gets cut off, I'm going to just make a part two rather than start from the beginning. So, I look at other areas. I think Manchester and Sheffield have electric trams, so does Birmingham. Birmingham's probably the biggest city in Europe that doesn't have an underground system. It's over 1 million people, no underground system, which is surprising. Um, it's been quite a while since I've been in Birmingham. I think they've quite an extensive tram system, as I recall, the Midland Metro tram service. That's pretty extensive, but no underground service. Liverpool, in fact, I think I'm right in saying, if I've got this right, only 4 UK cities have an underground system. London, of course, is the first to be built in the world, and I love the London Underground. Been a while since I've used it, but I just love the different stations. I like undergrounds in general. I find them fascinating. The history, the different stations, the just the crisscrossing around. I would happily pay a ticket just to travel around. No other reason. But anyway, yeah. So London, of course, Tyne and Wear. It's partially underground, but it's classed as a rapid transit system. Glasgow, the Clockwork Orange, and Liverpool. But the Liverpool and Glasgow systems are quite small, considering they're sizable cities. They're quite small systems. The Tyne and Wear Metro is the second biggest in the country. So, to my fellow Northeast people, we shouldn't complain too much because at least we have it. There's some parts of the country, some bigger cities don't even have one. So that's something. I'm not sure about Nottingham. I think Nottingham is a tram system. Leicester, I don't know about Leicester. Anyone watching from Leicester, is it a tram system? Is it just, are you just relying on buses? Where else do we have? Bristol. I'm not sure what Bristol is. I know there's mainline train stations around Bristol, but I don't know if they also have a tram system. I know they don't have an underground. Cardiff, Edinburgh, trams, buses. For a capital city, Edinburgh, I don't know. I don't live there, but I've visited many times. The thing about Edinburgh, I know it well, so I just walk around there. And it's not a massive city, so it's possible to do. But anyone from Edinburgh, do you have a tram service there? What's the situation? Belfast, my birth city. I don't think there's a tram service in Belfast. I think it's just buses. I'm not sure. Bradford, trams, I believe. Leeds, trams. In fact, I came across a video before making this where the guy was calling Leeds the worst city in Europe for public transport. Now, I don't know if the good people of Leeds can confirm or deny that. Be my guest. Hull, probably just buses. So looking at that, a lot of cities don't have Wolverhampton connected to Birmingham. It's a Midland tram system. Um, a lot of places don't have a rapid transit system in the sense of an underground system. It's electric trams. If they're efficient, that's fine. I mean, we don't have trams up here, so that's that. Um, but yeah, that brings me to the mainline services, right? I think this has been a kind of bugbear for the British people for a long time, and it's kind of an irony. We were the country that gave the world railways. In fact, the world's first operational railway was built about 10 miles from here, the Stockton to Darlington Railway, a little bit more than that, but this region back in, I believe, 1825. Then the first commercial railway, Liverpool to Manchester, 1831 or 1835. I can't remember. It might be in 1832, actually, but that decade anyway. So we were the country that gave the world railways. We have a pretty extensive system. We've also tragically had a lot of accidents, a lot of fatal accidents, more, to my surprise, even than the United States. In fact, the UK may even have more track miles than the US, which is incredible. But when you think about it, America, it's big, big distances between cities, but they don't necessarily crisscross around the country. That might explain it. Um, in the Beaching Acts, of course, in the 60s, a lot of those little stations were closed. I think some with good reason, some maybe not the right call. But my dad loves railways, but nowadays I think it is a stressful thing travelling in this country. So 4 years ago, my train broke down. It was the Grand Central service from Sunderland to London. It's the only direct service from Sunderland to London. It's a nice train, actually, but it just broke down. The engine overheated, and we were outside Peterborough. Well, I had to get off at Peterborough, look for information, and this is the big issue I have with the way the railways are. I think people can accept that things happen. You get bad weather, you get tragically, people taking their lives, you get things on the line, that happens. But for me, this was a classic example of the problem, which is a lack of information, right? So I think the British people can be very patient, actually. People will put up with a delay as long as they know what's happening. So, okay, we're delayed. You need to replace the engine. But what happens? Are we getting on the next train? Is there a bus replacement? Are you putting us up in a hotel? No information. And the people at the information desk at Peterborough were waiting for information. Someone is failing to give them that. And that's putting them under pressure because the public, the customers want to know what's happening. Obviously, the information boards were wrong. And this is not the first time I've experienced it. In the end, I was in Peterborough for a few hours, didn't have to stay over. I got a train to London, but it turned out to be Liverpool Street instead of King's Cross. So I got Liverpool Street, got the London Underground, and I was seeing my brother at that time in Surrey. But anyway, it was a long day. But here's my issue, things happen, I accept that. And it happened to me once in Germany, actually. I was in Dusseldorf Central Station. I had to go back to my father, Len, in Rotterdam. And the train just was cancelled. I don't know if it was bad weather, but it was just cancelled. So that was a long, long night. I had to basically stay in the train station. Didn't really have anywhere else to go. Very cold. It was a November night. And I ended up having to take these little trains each time. So, sometimes we say that was a rare example where German efficiency kind of was an anticlimax because that was actually quite a long night. And it was the same problem. in from kiosk to kiosk, and it wasn't a language issue because I could see local people were getting frustrated as well by the lack of information. But in the end, I had to get lots of little local services back to Rotterdam. And it's not a huge journey, it's about 100 kilometres, but I had to get about 5 or 6 local trains between Dusseldorf and Rotterdam. Then when I was on the Dutch side, they said, oh, well, you could check out our app and fill in a form. But the thing is, it's this assumption, this over reliance on technology, that's maybe for another issue. Back to the UK. Yeah, so I got to London, I got to the connection, but it was this lack of information. There should be, I know that these things happen, but the railway companies know that they happen. They know that this periodically happens, so they should have a plan in place already so that they could just put that into operation when these things go wrong. Okay, a train has failed, so we'll give the passengers information. The next train will be at this time, or if they don't have that information, at least keep people up to date. At least say, thank you for your patience, we are getting information as soon as possible. But there's nothing. This is the frustrating thing. Commuters are left themselves to try and work out what's going on. That's unacceptable, and I don't think that would happen in a country like Japan. Again, I haven't been to Japan. Maybe that system is overrated in terms of its efficiency. But from what I've heard, it's very efficient. And any mix-ups, the manager will come out and personally apologise. That's probably exaggerated, but I do think in other countries they have a better attitude to customers. I honestly believe that. The cost of railways in this country is extortionate. I mean, a season ticket in Southeast England, you need to take out probably a mortgage. It goes into thousands of pounds. And the thing is, okay, that's unlimited, but if there's constant delays, I think it's unlimited for half a year or a year. I don't know what it is, but I really, really sympathise with people in Southeast England. And then added to that, you have the green extremists, with all their stunts. That's why it infuriates people so much. And that's why when people defend the likes of Just Stop Oil, they should understand that the long suffering public already have to put up with these problems in public transport. And the thing is, if they really want to reduce CO2, I'm talking about here the companies and eco activists, then don't mess with the public. For eco activists, don't target the public because you're just going to polarize people. And for the big companies, if you really want to be green, if you want to encourage people to use your services, then be more attractive. Um, we have a situation where there's strikes, where there's rising costs, and they always say, oh, well, the costs have to rise because we're going through a generational overhaul of the system. But that's always the excuse. I mean, literally, that is what's been used for the last 10 years. I just think that there's a lot of areas that can improve when it comes to our railways. And things happen. I'm not expecting the system to be like clockwork. It's a big system. There will sometimes be delays. But I think if I could change one thing, I would say there has to be much, much better communication between railway companies and customers. Just give people information. Tell them exactly where that bus replacement is. Give them information about when the next train is going to be. Don't leave people in the dark. And they can't say they don't have the information because there should be some sort of blueprint in operation when these things happen. Maybe not for the precise information, but at least for the protocol for what to do. Don't leave people in the dark. So I feel sorry for people that rely on these things, and